My question is, if you are saying that you're prepared to go to court, could you not go to court first to challenge the Expropriation Act before you decided to go beyond South Africa's borders to be able to cause alarm?
We wrote to the president in April already last year, and we were simply met with disdain. We were ignored, and they're going to act against us.
How is South Africa's foreign policy anti-American when we've been non-aligned?
If you're going to see the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Naledi Pandor, going to Iran, sitting there with the late President Raisi, how is that non-aligned?
Right. The president has said in public that what you're doing is creating divisions.
Well, the president must also tell you that we wrote to him numerous letters. Also, just before we departed to the US, we wrote another letter to him asking for discussions. He simply ignored us.
What proof do you have that he ignored you, or he was simply going to still get to your letter?
Guys, so I'm really struggling to understand, because, you know, this is Tucker Carlson. He just published his interview with Ernst Roost, talking about South Africa falling apart and all the details, man. It's a shocking interview, bro. So the title says that man charged with treason for speaking to Tucker about the killing of whites in South Africa. So because he spoke to Tucker Carlson about whites being murdered in South Africa, he's been charged with treason. I don't know how true that is, but one thing I know for sure is that the media is going haywire in what has been called the opening of dockets for high treason. And I think this is as regards South Africans who have actually gone or visited other countries abroad to spread, according to, I think, the dockets, misinformation and all of that. Let's just quickly listen to the Hawks chief break down what this docket is about.
There are 4 dockets that have been opened by different people, maybe from different political parties, that concern some individuals that may have crossed the border to go and communicate some of the things that are perceived to be in the direction of high treason. I don't want to mention the names of organizations, but as you correctly say, there are some organizations that are suspected to be involved, but certain complainants have indicated that this and that organization seems to be the ones that are actually advocating something that appear to be high treason. We are investigating, is at the initial stage of the investigation. Those type of crimes, you need to be careful in the way in which you collect that evidence. Yeah, if there is evidence and then the National Prosecuting Authority direct that we need to secure the attendance of the accused, we don't discriminate. Anyone who commit crime must know that we will be doing that without fear, favor, or prejudice.
Yeah, so you could see here that, and the video I'll be playing soon with this SABC reporter and Kallie actually suggests that it actually appears that these dockets actually concern the AfriForum and the Solidarité in their visit to the US. And you can hear Kallie in this interview really stubborn in that, really placing his foot on the ground, arguing that, you know, the AfriForum and the Solidarité are not the ones who are disloyal to the nation, but it's the ANC that actually has been disloyal with its corrupt practices, according to them anyway, not me, according to them, with their corrupt practices and also all of the policies they've been passing, you know, in South Africa that have been violating the tenets for their relationship with Western countries like the United States. Okay, so Kallie argues that AfriForum is trying to save the country from disaster. I think that they've been trying to plead for AGOA not to be, taken from South Africa. He's actually also arguing that, and you could hear this SABC reporter really quite, on the sort of like provocative side, asking, why with the Bella Act, why Kallie and AfriForum and Solidarity didn't go to court in South Africa but had to go outside. Kallie argues that they've been writing to President RAMAPHOSA for many, I think since last year, they've been writing, but President RAMAPHOSA somehow has snubbed them. And so this was kind of like born out of a frustration for what actually seems to be an attack on their identity. And like I usually say, guys, South Africa, especially when you consider the way South Africa was born into nationhood, I think that the sustainability of leadership that the kind of country like South Africa needs is one of a leader that's able to really, really deeply unite the diverse societies that make up South Africa. Even in Nigeria, for example, we have a problem with, diversity, but it doesn't have a racial tone to it. And this is why I think South Africa is quite a special one, because you see, if a civil war, any kind of war breaks out in South Africa, we might be seeing a civil war with a racial tonality to that, and we know how sensitive these issues are. So the kind of leader that must erupt to lead the kind of nation that South Africa has become in this post-apartheid, post-colonial era has to be one that is actually grounded in the machineries of unity and nation building, especially in terms of multicultural and multi-ethnic differences, so to speak, in a society. And I think probably because of the fact that AfriForum, Solidarity are not seeing that kind of cohesion, so to speak, they are really beginning to feel threatened, you see. And this is something that might not necessarily even come out from AfriForum or the Afrikaners and the next time. It could be the Indians, it could be the Coloreds, you see. And so I'm really worried that this actually seems to be leading somewhere towards what might actually feel like a civil kind of like unrest. Okay, but let's quickly listen to this portion of Kallie's interview with this SABC reporter, who actually I think she felt angry sometimes as well regarding the picture that South Africa seems to, the portrayal of South Africa now in the global scene, or maybe the exposition of the truth about South Africa to the global world, so to speak. And I'll be back for some few thoughts.
So my question is, I'll get to the president in just a moment. My question is, if you are saying that you're prepared to go to court to defend yourself, should you find yourselves with a case like this to answer, and you've got confidence in the court, could you not go to court first to challenge the Expropriation Act before you decided to go beyond South Africa's borders to be able to cause alarm?
No, well, we will indeed go to court. We've said that we are going to court, and our legal team is already busy with that. But we have a two-pronged approach. Remember, this is not only with regard to the Expropriation Act. We are also here to complain with regard to the fact that there are people in our country singing "Kill the Boer." In that case, we did go to court, and the court did not give us any protection. We have a president and leaders that are not condemning this while we are seeing tortures on farms. If we are not going to be able to pressurize the ANC leaders in South Africa, we will garner support elsewhere. And that is exactly what we will keep on doing. We will not be intimidated by these complaints. The fact is, if anybody is disloyal to the country, it's ANC leaders through corruption. We've seen the Zondo Commission. I've heard the Hawks say they will act without fear, favor, or prejudice. There are 94 ANC leaders that have been implicated in the Zondo Commission report, and it seems the Hawks is not acting without fear, favor, or prejudice against them. They are scot-free at the moment. So this is selective abuse of the criminal justice system in the country.
So you are in a country where you have been offered a place to stay. I know you've said that you're not looking to take up that offer, but if you feel like you're not being listened to in South Africa, one would ask, why not take up the U.S. government's offer there?
Because I'm an Afrikaner and I want to make sure that the next generation, so my grandchildren are also Afrikaners, and the only place we can do that is on the southern tip of Africa. We don't want to be assimilated within communities in another country. So that is why we are taking this seriously. And remember, we are fighting to divert Zimbabwean kind of situation in the country. So we are fighting in the interest of everybody in the country. What we've seen, the US has not reacted to us. The US, we've said to people, or people at the Congress said to us, they've been following a long time now, South Africa having an anti-American foreign policy, South African disrespecting property rights, and they're going to act against us.
How is South Africa's foreign policy anti-American when we've been non-aligned, and South Africa has also had that AGOA agreement with the US? So how then is South Africa having an anti-US foreign policy?
Well, we most definitely not non-aligned. We have sided in the world. We say we need to be non-aligned. Well, if Nomvula Mokonyane says openly she wants Santon Drive to be changed to Leila Khalid so that the American consulate should put her name on the letterhead, she's, of course, a person that planned terror against U.S. citizens. How is that independent or not taking sides? When Gwede Mantashe says the U.S. is spreading trouble in South Africa, how is that not being unaligned? If you're going to see the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Naledi Pandor, going to Iran, sitting there with the late President Raisi, how is that non-aligned? This government has taken sides. India is actually a good example for us. They can be part of BRICS and have a good relationship with the US because they put their people first. Our government is putting their own ideology and their own country first to the detriment of normal people in this country.
So you're speaking about, and I'm going to use this term, black leaders of the ANC. Are you also taking...
No, I never used the term black.
But I'm saying I'm using it. I'm saying I'm using it. I'm saying it's black leaders, right, of the ANC. Yeah. And I'm using that deliberately for this next question. What position are you taking to what has been posted by, for example, someone like Renaldo Gous, who was with the Democratic Alliance, and things that were seen to also be racist at the time? Is that, for you, a concern?
Well, the fact is we're against all forms of racism, and that legal process is still ongoing. But we will not be diverted through these kind of arguments. What we've seen is much worse. Julius Malema saying, kill the Boer. He calls for us to be killed. And the president is dead silent on that. The fact is, the only reason how we're going to save AGOA, the only way we're going to save AGOA and going to save our country from sanctions is if we address the real issues. We've been asking here in the US for South Africa not to be kicked out of AGOA. They say, well, they cannot keep us in AGOA because of disrespect for property rights, because of disrespect for human rights.
Who's saying that? Pardon me, who's saying that in the US?
Members of Congress that we have spoken to, as well as in the State Department and also in the White House. The message remains the same. So if we want to save the country, what we want to do, of course, we make those arguments, don't punish the ordinary people, keep us in AGOA. If you're going to act against anybody, rather act against ANC leaders.
So the president has said, right, the president has said in public that what you're doing is creating division, certainly not building the nation, running around, you know, to the world when you have your grievances. And he's calling on yourselves to solve the problems here in the country so that you are able to deal with the problems. And one would ask, is that something that you are considering at all? Because the president is saying, solve the problems here at home.
Well, the president must also tell you that we wrote to him numerous letters. Also, just before we departed to the US, we wrote another letter to him asking for discussions. He simply ignored us. So now to come and tell us, well, why don't you come and discuss? We wanted to discuss, and he ignored us.
But What proof do you have that he ignored you, or he was simply going to still get to your letter? And I ask this, right? I'm not speaking on his behalf.
Yeah.
It's a question to say that, for example, you write to him. Let's say you write to him, then the letter still needs to get to the president, and then the president writes to you and says, okay, let's then sit at the table and have this meeting. So did you give him a time frame within which to respond, or how did you view this being ignored?
Most definitely. Well, we wrote our first letter to him in April last year already, and that's been a long time. I hope his processes is not that slow. You simply ignore that letter. We again wrote to him with regard to the Bella Act. At least in that case, he mandated the team to negotiate with us. But of course, then afterwards just said, no, he has no knowledge of this. The team at NEDLAC did not have his mandate. So we've tried, we have a clean conscience. But and of course, the president's spokesperson, before we left, he said, the president will not speak to AfriForum and Solidarity. So what more proof do we need than the official spokesperson of the president saying that? So our conscience is clean. We try to discuss locally. But if the president had a change of heart and he now wants to solve these issues locally, we are more than willing. We will be looking forward to enter into these discussions.
So should you lose AGOA? Pardon me, should you lose AGOA? I know you say you've met with members of Congress and they're raising their concerns, and you're saying that punish a number of people, certainly not punish the entire country, but they can still do their own thing and not listen to what you say. So if your calls not to punish the entire country fall on deaf ears, and they simply take AGOA away from South Africa and then not punish these individuals that you're talking about, what are you going to do?
Well, we will hold the South African government, the president and ANC leaders accountable. Also, former Minister Naledi Pandor, because they are the kind of people that have now gambled with the future of our country and its people. So then, of course, we will have to negotiate with regard to what other alternatives there are. But this issue needs to be solved. It's not going to be solved by making accusations of high treason.
But would you take responsibility?
No, I did not sign the Expropriation Act. I did not sign the Bella Act. I did not sign with Hamas and Iran. It's the president and his government that did so. How can I take responsibility for their irresponsible behaviors? I can at least
responsibility for
I try to stop it.
I ask this, right? Because you've now gone to the US and you've said all that you've said. You've spoken to the number of people that you've said, and you've spoken to and you've sat across the tables, you've pleaded with them. Then your pleas do not land well with them, let's say. And then they decide that they're now going to make this move. Because if you look at the Expropriation Act, for example, it speaks about the courts, being an opportunity for anyone to go there. Yes, it's vague. There's been a lot that's being said. The Democratic Alliance is taking it to court now, which is why I was asking you that if there's a reason why you then trust the courts, could you not have gone there, challenged it there first? But now you've gone to the US, you've said all that you've said, and then they take AGOA away from you as you're pleading to them not to do. If that happens, will you also take responsibility? Park the people you're talking about. I hear you and I understand from your vantage point what you're saying. But what responsibility are you also taking as well for that?
Absolutely no responsibility, because we are here to try and save AGOA. We are here to try and convince them not to kick us out of AGOA. So we will have a clean conscience. Just with regard to what you said regarding the Expropriation Act, Section 19(8) says quite clearly you can only go to court after expropriation has happened. And we know if there's a disputed court case, it will take you 5 years. So people will simply say, I don't have the resources to fight for 5 years. I've lost my income with the land that I've lost. And then they'll just take an offer of 20 or 30% or whatever it may be. That is a clear infringement on property rights, and it's of no use if expropriation can go ahead and you can only go to court later and you have to use your own resources.
All right, Kallie, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's see then what happens and what comes out of your negotiations.
Yes.
If you are going to get your way, and as you say, if the president, when you come back, is willing to speak, let's see what happens, as you say as well. But we'll also, do give a right of reply here and see what happens. But thank you for your time. That was Kallie Kriel.
Yeah, guys, so you see, Kallie actually also argues and thinks that, the whole thing with the Zondo Commission, that, the Hawks trying to go for AfriForum and Solidarity, while leaving out the victims or those who were indicted in the Zondo Commission is sort of like, for them, a contradictory effort by the Hawks, okay? And so they really don't think that that's actually, that kind of thing. You could also hear how, this portion where the SABC reporter tries to really bring up the issue with Ronaldo House's racist remarks. I think that was somewhere around last year, where an old video of him having a racist outburst in South Africa, then jeopardized his position in the DA. I think he was actually said to be a DA minister or something like that, but that was quite an unfortunate one. But Kallie actually claps back on that statement, arguing that Julius Malema's killed the Boer also went really silent. Like President Ramaphosa was silent on that remark, and that video also spread like wildfire on X, bro. That video has actually been on YouTube for a long time. I think I'd seen that video once. I really didn't understand what was really going on, with the whole thing with kill the Boer. I think there was one video I made once where Julius Malema used to ask, why don't they allow us to kiss the Boer, that kind of thing. I hadn't really gotten to this level of understanding I have for South Africa. But that video, when he started spreading on X, bro, with the whole crowd chanting kill the Boer, it felt a certain way. But anyway, Kallie says that President Ramaphosa let that slide. He didn't really vociferously lash out on that, and that was a really direct they felt disappointed with the president. And also him blasting Naledi Pando's visit to Iran, you see, and some other leaders in their relationships, that has seemed to make South Africa not necessarily neutral anymore. South Africa used to be claimed to be ideologically neutral, all right? And I think this was also one of the speeches with Thabo Mbeki, where he argued that the right thing for South Africa to do is to maintain its neutrality amidst this multi-faceted, multi-ideological wings which the world seems to be taking now. But in its positioning with Iran and Russia, it actually appears that South Africa sacrificed that neutrality, saliently, and Kallie was trying to really bring that. You could hear that really carefully in this interview. And so Kallie believes that they will go to court, even if they are actually dragged in this docket for high treason, that they would really approach the courts, go with the vehicles and the machinery of the courts, and really, because they really don't think that they're doing anything wrong. And so this is where AfriForum and Solidarity, it seems to really have a really firm footing in what they call as their fight for South Africa and for sanity in South Africa. So guys, this is actually, I don't want this video to be so long, but man, this is actually me just really reminiscing and trying to really think through all of these things. And the final word I would say is, I still repeat it, most of the time in Africa, when we try to solve problems, we don't tackle the root causes. The root cause of what I'm beginning to hear in South Africa seems to be, the processes by which South Africa was born into nationhood, all right? And if that process by which it was born and agreed to get into nationhood seems to be severed, I think it was a colored rainbow coalition or rainbow unity, so to speak. But now it appears that that rainbowism seems to be challenged on many fronts. Okay, and to have that really challenged is to really be attacking at the heart of what it means to be a nation for South Africa, which will necessarily mandate a civil war, civil disobedience, as we're seeing today. And so I think in my mind, the future of South Africa, especially a sustainable future, will be one in which a leader that in the likes of probably Nelson Mandela, or one who understands and grasps this phenomenon of rainbowism, which means a certain form of deep unity, cohesion, you know, to drive the country forward, has to emerge. Otherwise, we would see much more divisions. These are divisions that are actually already inherent in the society, but now we just have these policies really bringing them to the fore, and then now they're attracting sanctions and all of that. And bro, everyone is going to pay if South Africa is placed on sanctions. But anyway, this video, I don't want it to be too long. What do you guys think about this interview with Kallie and this SABC reporter here? Share your thoughts, guys, in the comments.